Hey everybody, I'm Daniel and welcome back to Daniel Scott Films. Today I'm excited to show you my new creation, what I call the Daniel Dolly. And as you might have guessed, this is very similar to the industry standard Dana Dolly, but it has been created using 90% small rig parts. And so what's really cool about this is that you can really cannibalize this thing and use it for other grip equipment, for camera supports or lighting grip. And so building something using equipment you already own or probably will own in the future, it makes this investment stretch even that much further. All right, so when I came up with the idea for the Daniel Dolly, I had 6 goals in mind, the first being affordability. Now this is going to be a little bit more expensive than your normal $50 build, which are very inspirational ideas that I've seen online on YouTube, and so I wanted to maybe add on that just a few more layers of professional build quality, and just to see what else I could find online that could be more closely on par with some of the industry leading dollies that are out there without spending as much. And the second is adaptability. I wanted to create a rail slider system that allowed me to use any sort of width I wanted here. Here I'm using a 12-inch small rig 15mm rail, and it's set on these 15mm clamps, so I can slide these clamps in and out if I needed to, or I can just completely get a longer rod or a shorter rod depending on how portable I want to make it. And also by using the super clamps here, I can use just about any rod here. I think it kind of goes up to about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. I'm not sure here, but that's pretty wide range of rod widths that you can use. And third is portability. I wanted to create a system that was easy to break down. This can easily fit in the bottom of your luggage, and you can take the rail ends off and then take all the little bits off, and then you can actually travel without these rods, knowing that you can go to the hardware store on location and purchase a couple of cheap rods. And then of course the clamps are adjustable, so they would accommodate just about any sort of rod you wanted to fit on this rail system. And I wanted to make this strong enough to where this platform would support my own weight. And just the other day I was just kind of skating on this to see if it would hold my weight, and so even a hefty guy like myself, I weigh 200 pounds, so this had no problem. Now the weakest point of this rail system is the rails that you purchase. And also keep in mind that you have to kind of balance out like how far the rail ends that you want to set it apart. It really dictates how strong the center will be. You may need to put a center support if you want a really long one, or you can compensate by getting thicker rods. And lastly, and probably most importantly, I wanted a system that was easy to build and find parts for. And so I bought most of these parts on Amazon. A lot of these hardware pieces, these bolts and these washers and the lock nut washers, you'll have to purchase at a hardware store. I'm sure you can buy them online, but it's just easier just to go to your local store and support your local business when you can. All right, here's a list of the hardware that you'll need. You'll need 4 super clamps. You'll need 4 M12 threaded adapters with the 1/4-20 inner thread. This will be used for mounting our wheels onto our small rig rods. Okay, and we have 4 pulley wheels, and they have a 608Z inner bearing, and the 608Z bearing has a 5/16 inner diameter to allow for a 5/16 bolt that goes through it. We're going to be using 1/4-20. It works fine, it still works tight in there, but the 1/4-20 was the way that we could use this with the 1/4-20 inner with the M12. I could not find an M12 with a 5/16 thread on the inside. I just don't think that that's just too narrow of a gap for this whole thing to work. So, but this whole thing, and once you tighten it down, the wheels do not move at all. If you are concerned about the difference between the 1/4-20 and the 5/16 bolt diameter, you can actually put a 1/4-20 bolt inside of a tube that has a 5/16 outer diameter, and then thread it in there just for a super tight fit. And I think that's what I'm going to do later, but if you just screw everything tightly, it's not going to budge at all. Okay, down here in the bottom, I have a 12-inch 15mm rod from Small Rig, and these have the M12 thread, but since we're just going to be using the rails here, it's not absolutely necessary that you have the M12 thread. You can actually use the non-M12 thread, which are basically your carbon fiber rails. Okay, and then this one down here, this is important that the whatever rods are using for the platform, typically it's a shorter width than the end rails, and this will support your axle. This will be your axle support for the platform. These need to have the M12 threaded on the inside. Okay, I just messed this whole pretty thing up, didn't I? Okay, and then let's go ahead and straighten this one up here. I spent so much time getting this right. Okay, I got 10 15mm rod clamps here. 4 will be used for the platform, and then 6 will be used for the end rails. Okay, over here we have 4 1/4-20 male to 1/4-20 male on each side adapters. Then we have all the rest of these things you can find at your local hardware store. I have 8 1/4-20 bolts, and they are 3/4 of an inch long. I have about 20 M6 washers. These will fit perfectly on a 1/4-20 threaded bolt. These over here are a little bit smaller. They work fine. They just have a little bit smaller of an inner diameter. If you can find the larger, the wider ones like these, I would recommend those. And here on the end we have the locking washers, which will provide a better, more secure fit for the wheels. And then finally, this square piece here, this part did not originally have this hole here, so it was center punched here. This is a big key to this whole thing, which I found it really handy. It's actually a very durable piece of metal, but it's actually used to mount a television. And so this is about 8 inches by 8 inches, and it works perfectly. We're going to mount the wheels here, and here, but you could also later mount the wheels on the corner here just using one axis, so you can use the dolly slider as a product orbit shot dolly. I'm not sure, tabletop dolly, is that what you call it? All right, the only tools that you're going to need here is a socket wrench, and I have a 7/16 socket, and this fits on the bolts that I purchased at the hardware store. So depending on the bolt that you purchase, it may be different, it may be metric. Then you will need some oil, and then you will need a drill bit. I'm using a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill a hole in the center here. You will need the oil here to keep the drill bit from burning out. You may choose to use a 3/8 inch drill bit because a 3/8 bolt is a pretty popular size for camera mounts. Okay, on with the build. Here I have already drilled the center hole. And again, you just put some of your oil on there and your drill bit, and just you'll get through it, no problem. It's really not that thick, so it shouldn't be that difficult of a job to do. Okay, next, the fun part, we're going to go ahead and start assembling our axle. And so we're going to be using our 8-inch 15mm rods. So the first thing we are going to do is take our M12 to a 1/4-20 inner, and we're just going to simply screw that in the end here. Then next, we're going to take one of these wheels. We're going to take a washer. I'm going to use one of my smaller ones here on one side, and then one on the other side, and then we're also going to take a locking washer. Locking washers go on the outside of the smooth washers. Okay, then we're going to take one of our 1/4-20 bolts, and we're going to put that all the way through here. There we go. And then we're just going to screw this on here. Okay, come on now. Okay, and then you want to grip some of that thread in there, and then we're just going to use our socket to tighten it down. But before we put the other wheel on, we need to put 2 of these 15mm rod clamps on here. And I just want to be careful to put these in the same direction. I don't want to put this the other way. So whatever direction they're in, just needs to be the same as both of them. Okay, and then this same thing over here. Launcher, launcher, and launcher, launcher. Okay. We have an axle. We're going to do the same thing for the other one. And so next we are going to add the axles onto this platform here. So this is just going to go, I prefer to have, let's move it like this, here you go. This way, these little knobbies are on the outside. Okay, and then I'm going to use 3 of these washers on the other side simply because I need more space for this to kind of not connect the bolt all the way down because it does stop at some point. So I found, at least for me, that the washers that I have and the bolt length that I have, 3 washers work for me. Okay, and then once you have all those mounted, you will flip it over, and then you will take your wrench here, your socket wrench, make sure all these are tight. I've already tightened them down, so I'm just kind of more just doing this for demonstration because I forgot to start my camera after it died. Okay, so that's the hard part out of the way. That's what's here. It's here. One thing you want to make sure of is that this doesn't rock at all. You know, so it needs to be flush right on the table, or else you're going to have some problems later on. We have our sliding platform and we have our end rails. So let's just go ahead and get our rails. You can see this. The second demonstration I'm going to use instead of rail, it's a little bit short, so you can fit in the camera. But this rail setup is about 4 feet long, and I would typically extend to full length I can use for this rail system. Okay, so here we go. We will need to adjust the width based on the width of our Dolly rail system here. Okay, so I need to come out a little bit. I'm going to do one at a time. Okay, so I'm going to loosen this one up. Loosen that one. Bring this out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Squeeze over here. And then we're going to do this double down. One thing you want to keep in mind is just make sure everything's level here. Make sure there's no wobble at all. If you put on a flat surface, I mean, obviously it's going to shift a little bit if you do that, but what you don't want if you put on a flat surface, you don't want either end to have like a wobble, so there should be both contacts on all four corners over here as well as over here. Alright, and there we have it, folks. We have a dolly slider. The Daniel dolly is complete.